Hey MiniWarGamers, and welcome to another episode of The Machine Shop with Ash. I am here today to talk to you about war games and war gamers. If you haven't seen my show before, I usually take a talking point and discuss it, kind of like an essay. Usually it's something that's on my mind. Something you guys have mentioned or something that we've discussed online in the comments of one of my other shows, or something that's just been in my head because it's got to do with what I'm working on, what I've been seeing go on in the world of wargaming and the world of toy soldiers. So today's episode, Ready to Quit, episode 9. Why is Ready to Quit the title of this episode? Well, it's not about me being ready to quit. It's about the fact that I see people all the time saying they are ready to quit X or Y or Z hobby, or they are ready to quit with X or Y or Z project, game, company, whatever. I thought it would be interesting to explore that. And so the first thing that we need to explore is, when do I hear this comment happen? Man, I am done. I'm out of here. Mic drop. I'm ready to quit. I'm finished with blah, whatever thing that I'm currently involved in. And so that leads me to talking point number 1, which is changes, like the David Bowie song. So there you go. Turn and face the strange. Like David Bowie says, it's a change. Lots of things change in miniature wargaming. The number one time I hear people say they are ready to quit, they are finished, they are done, is when rules change. So, rules change. That's an interesting one. So, someone is getting mad or emotionally invested in a change in the rules. Could be the main rules of the game, could be the rules for a miniature or a model or an army or a rule set. I think it's interesting to talk about that. So, what is driving the emotional reaction to the rules change? Well, it's probably got to do with something I talk about really often, which is, what is that guy's investment in his hobby? And when I say investment, I don't mean a monetary investment. I mean, what is he excited about or interested in? So talk about this in the past. If you want to check out some of my previous episodes, like Playing to Win, that's a good one to talk about people who have a big slice of playing the game in their personal hobby pie, their personal pie chart that makes up their interests. So when the rules change, I would say that there's probably a very good chance that the thing that guy's invested in is probably the thing that he has collected the model to do. So not the physical form of a model, a miniature, an army, or a game, but the actual game itself. So give you an example. If I was playing, I don't know, let's say War Machine, and all of a sudden there's an edition change in War Machine or an army change in War Machine, and some model in my army no longer did the awesome, great thing that it used to do, or some other model got released that took away the awesome, cool thing that my models do. It's a great example would be stealth. I have an army that has a great deal of stealth in it. I play Krix or I play Khador. I have some stealth models. I rely on that as part of my army's survival tactics. It's a big part of my game and how I play the game. Let's say Hordes gets released and Legion comes out and they have Isle of Sight, meaning they ignore stealth. All of a sudden there is a scissor to my paper, and I'm having an emotional reaction because the thing I relied on, the thing that I did, the thing that I invested time and attention to those models for, has been taken away or altered in some way. So that's one of the times when I see people have really big emotional reactions, is during rules changes. And typically it's because the thing that they are invested in has fundamentally altered somehow, and they are getting emotionally involved in that change. The next one would be the models. So sometimes models change. Why is that on my mind right now? Well, let's just say that there's been a certain company who has released one of their most popular miniature lines on a different size base. Now this has happened before, much like in the Matrix, everything's happened before and everything will happen again. In the early 2000s, Space Marine Terminators all of a sudden came out with 40mm bases, and people lost their minds. 40mm bases? What do you mean I have to rip all my Terminators off 20mm bases and put them on 40mm bases? I literally went through and heard this exact same explosion of anger and frustration about 10 years ago when that happened. It's happening right now because some Blood Angel miniatures got released for the Space Marine Army by Games Workshop that have 32mm bases. I personally think they look really cool. And there was an instant assumption that every Space Marine miniature ever produced that was on a 25mm base was no longer valid or legal. And you had to rip them all off and put them all on new bases. Well, I guess from a certain point of view, that might be true. If you are playing every single one of your games in a very competitive environment where modeling for advantage is frowned upon, then maybe you would want to go and rebase all your Space Marine miniatures. I personally own thousands of Space Marine miniatures, and I am not going to rebase a single one of them. I am going to keep them all in the 25mm bases. I am very likely going to build new armies of Space Marines as I build them with 32mm bases, because I think they look chunky and beefy and kind of cool. It certainly sets Space Marines apart from regular line infantry like Eldar and Guardsmen and Tau. So I think there's a very cool visual aspect to that. But I'm not going to go and rebase them. I think it's a 7mm advantage. So there's a 3.3¼ or 3.5mm advantage going in any direction from that guy's base, which to me, if you're arguing about a 3.5mm, discrepancy in base size, I'm probably not going to have a lot of fun playing against you. I probably won't play you very often. You're the guy at my local gaming store. I'm probably not going to invite over to my house to play in my basement. And that's fine. I mean, if that's something that's really important to you, then you should probably play against people that are in an environment where they're going to go and rebase all those miniatures, and that's important. But the emotional reaction happening because of those model changes is, again, an investment thing. Guys have invested time and attention into building and collecting miniatures, and they feel like there has been a change to them, that the miniatures that they currently own on 25mm bases are no longer legitimate Citadel miniatures that can be used in a legitimate game. That's causing an emotional reaction, and that I can completely understand, because they are feeling like their investment is threatened. Just like the guy who invested money in something a miniature does in the game, right? Because the rules have now changed. You've invested money in a miniature to play a game with, and you feel like that miniature has somehow been invalidated. I personally, I don't think I will have that emotional reaction. I certainly didn't have that emotional reaction when Terminators changed and now when the Space Marines have changed. I think the only time I would ever have that emotional reaction is if miniatures were removed from the game completely. So I had a big collection of miniatures that I could just no longer straight up use in a game. But even so, I'm enough of a do-it-yourself gamer that I would probably just continue to play games in my basement with whatever miniatures I liked. But that's just me. And that's just my emotional sort of like compass on that issue. All right, and then the people. So people change. Now here's an interesting one. People are ready to quit because of people. And I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine from back in Toronto real recently about War Machine, actually, of all games. Because I've been doing a lot of War Machine stuff. He's actually been watching some of the War Machine games on YouTube and just talking about the miniatures. And this is actually the guy that I started playing War Machine with. He and I played War Machine to death when it first came out in Mark 1. And we were super excited about it. He was collecting Cricks, I was collecting Menoth. And we played a bajillion War Machine games against each other. Now, since I left Toronto and I moved to the States like 4 or 5 years ago, neither of us played a lot of War Machine. Mostly because he's like my primary opponent for every miniature game. And yeah, we don't get to play that often because we don't live in the same city anymore. But he was getting interested in it again. The problem was there was nobody in the area interested in casually playing War Machine. All the War Machine players that were in the local meta to him in Toronto didn't really paint their miniatures. They played only primarily in tournaments or prepared for tournaments, and that was something that didn't interest him at all. He was going through the Private Press catalog, looking at all the cool models that had come out since he'd been playing, checking out the Colossals, like he's really excited about the Mountain King. He doesn't really care what it does in the game, same with Retribution. He doesn't really care what it does in the game. He'll make stuff work as he buys it. He'll play it, the best it can be played, and that's part of what he likes is the challenge doing that. But he had a real suspicion that he wasn't going to be able to find anybody to play it about. And so we're chatting on Facebook, chatting online about it, but at the end he decided not to go back and pick up a bunch of War Machine stuff, based purely on the fact that there wasn't really any people in his area. The people in his area who he was going to play the game with had changed, and he wasn't interested in playing against them, playing in that type of way with the people that were currently playing the game. And so yeah, so people that play the hobby with you can change, and they can change how they play, and that can push you in or out of a hobby. I know that casually playing War Machine when it first came out was something that lots of people did in the area that we were living in, and that certainly faded away in the last 10 years that War Machine's been played. And the same goes for Infinity, actually. Infinity was fairly casually played when we first started playing it. A lot more people were playing it competitively. 40K actually has gone the other way. A lot of people were playing it really competitively. A lot more people are playing it casually now, playing like 30K and campaign games and stuff like that, and the same with Fantasy. So I think that's a third time that I hear a lot of people say they're ready to quit, and it has less to do with the game or the models and more to do with the people currently playing the game and how it's being played. So that's really it. Those are the times you do it. People get their pitchforks and torches out, and they start ranting, and they have a very strong emotional reaction when those three things occur. People change, models change, or rules change. And yeah, the rants begin. So that leads me on to part 2 of this talk, really, is if that is the case, if you are in a situation where you find yourself having an emotional reaction, one of those three things in your environment has changed. Either the models in a wargame have changed, the rules in the wargame have changed. And those two things can go together very often. So like, new models can come out, not even for your army, but that do something to affect the meta of a game. Vice versa, models can get updated, changed, the look of them can skew a little bit, and that can affect your collection as you currently have it. And of course, people come and go. Your favorite wargaming opponent can move to America for 4 or 5 years and then move back to a different city. So you don't necessarily have, the ability to play with that guy all the time or to play in the way that you're used to playing in wargames. So yeah, that's the second part of this, is some self-examination. Why am I having this reaction, and what does it mean? Okay, so self-examination time. This is a gut check. And whenever I'm having an emotional reaction for anything, and it doesn't just have to be about war games. I'm very passionate about war games, spent a whole bunch of my life working in the industry for them and talking about them, and now talking to you guys about them. So I have a lot of very strong opinions about them that, come through. But what that usually means is, in other parts of my life too, I have strong opinions, and I kind of train myself when I'm feeling myself bubbling up and getting emotional to do a gut check. And the gut check for me is 3 questions. The first one is, how does this affect me? So I have to ask myself, what is the actual impact of this on me? So I'm gonna use the basing example, because I own tons of Space Marine armies. You guys have seen some of them. How does this affect me? Well, I don't really play 40K very much. Despite the fact that I work for MiniWarGaming, which is primarily a 40K channel, I don't work on 40K at all. So the last time I played a 40K game was in the summer against Dave. No, against Cullen, actually. That was the last time I played a 40K game. That was like 4 months ago. So does the having to rebase all my miniatures to play in a competitive environment really affect me in my job in my life right now? No, I don't plan on going to any tournaments. I don't play in a competitive environment. Here at MiniWarGaming, we're a fairly relaxed, sort of narrative-driven, at least Warhammer and Warhammer Fantasy environment. And yeah, all of my miniatures are still in their cases in the same state that they were before that sort of new Space Marine basing thing came into being. So how does that really affect me? It doesn't really affect me. It might affect people out there, right? Other people, and I can understand that. But how does it really affect me? It would mean that if I decided to go and play in a competitive tournament where it was very much the case that I had to have all of my miniatures based on current range bases for their miniature type or whatever, and the rule didn't exist that, well, whatever the miniature is packaged with when you bought it is the correct basing type, which I'm pretty sure is still the standard Games Workshop rule. If some TO said that I had to rebase all my miniatures, then it would affect me. So in a hypothetical future scenario, I might be affected by the changing base sizes in Space Marine armies in Warhammer 40,000. That's it. That would be how it would affect me. So has anything really changed for me right now as I sit in my hobby? No. Nothing's changed. I still own all the same miniatures. They're still all painted. They're still all based. I play in an environment where no one's going to care how they're based. So no, nothing's changed for me. So how am I feeling now? Well, after that self-examination, I feel pretty much the same way as I did at the beginning. I'm fairly ambivalent about the whole thing, except that I feel like when I do build new Space Marine miniatures, I'm going to be excited about how chunky they look on their big, giant 32mm bases, which is 7mm different. They're not that much bigger, but it makes them look, they have a bigger footprint on the table. They feel a bit more imposing. I like that. So yeah, so let's take another case in point, self-examination. Infinity has just changed. Okay, so N3, I'm knee-deep in Infinity right now. You can see I'm surrounded by Infinity buildings. In fact, I'm going to talk to you about some Infinity stuff later on today. That edition's changed. Some rules have changed. Some models have gone up and down in value in the new edition. So my infiltrating hacking specialists probably aren't as effective as they were in the previous version of the Infinity Tournament System, ITS. How do I feel about that? Did I play a lot of ITS Infinity tournaments? No. Did I not already own that miniature before ITS? Yes. So I didn't buy that miniature for ITS, so I don't really have a threat to my emotional investment there, so I don't really care about that. Has anything really changed for me? Probably not. How am I feeling right now? kind of excited because other miniatures that I hadn't gotten to play with are kind of more valuable now. So I'm actually really excited about N3 because my sort of rank and file line troops are more valuable. There's certain things in scenarios that mean that actually having a forward assault motion in your table game is a lot more proactive. Certain things got better, such as shotguns. Certain things are a bit more balanced to their proper ranges, like HMGs. So the basic dog guy, you know, sort of like dog soldier, dog face, I guess is what you call them, but there's actually dog face miniatures. I mean dog face in the term of like a general infantryman with a rifle. They become a little bit more valuable, and the gameplay is very fluid and flattened. So I'm really excited about N3. Stuff's changed. I'm excited to paint my new miniatures. I'm probably not going to play it super competitively still. We're going to play it fairly casually. But yeah, it's going to be an awesome game. And then people. So I still don't have my favorite opponent to play miniature games with living in my area, so we don't get to play very often. But N3's coming out. I'm painting new armies. He's painting new armies. And he's got some time off in January. So he's going to come down and play some games. So how am I feeling about that? I'm really excited about that. My opportunity to play some Infinity games in the future has gone up. I probably won't play very often, but I get to play the games the way that I like them, with nicely painted armies on a nicely painted table. Do I have some stuff to do for that? Yeah, I got to paint some buildings because I got to finish up my Infinity table for home. So there it is, self-examination. I find at the end of the day that when I self-examine, I calm down and I actually realize that changes are typically affecting hypotheticals in the future and not actually affecting me right now in my current state. So this is kind of a plea to the internet to calm down and not blow things out of proportion, but I don't think that that's ever going to happen because some people are really going to get affected by it. And that percentage of people that, you know, for them a 32mm base change because they play in a very tight, super competitive environment, they're going to have to go do some work. They have to buy new bases, rip their models off their bases, or build a new army. That's going to affect those guys. But for me personally, I'm not going to join in on an emotional reaction for something that doesn't personally affect me. I'm fairly ambivalent about it myself. Getting my pitchfork out and lighting my torch and getting mad about something like, I don't know, my hackers not being so good in N3, or about the new steamroller system, you know, changing up what I might or might not take in my my War Machine armies in the future because of the way that the objectives are going to work in Steamroller 2015, I don't think I'm going to get on a bandwagon about that. Do I think that Bradigus is the most OP thing in the game of War Machine? Well, I saw him get beaten by a fairly genetic P-Sevi list yesterday, and this was by two very high-level players. So I don't feel like it's the end of the world when models change, rules change, and people change. I think the people change actually affects me more than anything else. And a little self-examination can tend to calm us down and get us on the path where we're actually enjoying our hobby again. So at the end of the day, I guess the real gut check question is, if you don't enjoy what you're doing still, don't do it anymore. You are ready to quit. You're completely done doing it. But if you still enjoy it, and a little bit of self-examination makes you realize that nothing is stopping you from continuing to enjoy it, except for a hypothetical situation of what might happen in the future, should you choose to do something you're very unlikely to do, then probably you should just get back to enjoying what you're doing, because you'll have more fun, and you won't waste a bunch of energy being, you know, unhappy about what's to come. So, or what might come, not what is to come, because typically the thing that you're worried about happening doesn't actually happen because it's a hypothetical, not a reality. So there it is. There's episode 9, Ready to Quit. I think that self-examination and self-reflection are usually the best way to get you over an emotional reaction to any of those changes, models, rules, or the people that you are wargaming with. So let's check out on the painting table. All right, so on the painting table, here we have Orin Midwinter for my Mercs. He's a rogue inquisitor, fights for my Force Syndicate in my Magnus army. I got him done because I'm now working on Merc stuff. I've worked my way through my Menoth stuff to paint for the League, then my Khador, and down to Mercs, and he's one of the models for my Magnus army that I need to get finished. So, next up, finishing off my Khador stuff is my Iron Fang Kovnik. This guy's great, keeps from getting knocked down. A nice meat and potatoes paint job again, airbrushed on the basic reds, highlighted them, and did a bunch of stuff with metals to just sort of finish them off. His unit Iron Fangs, there's 10 of them, regular Iron Fangs. I have the UA, but I haven't actually painted it yet, including a unit leader. These are some older sculpts. They're not great miniatures, and they certainly don't rank up, so for guys with shield wall, it's super annoying to try and actually get them to stand together. But they're finished up as well. Same scheme as the Kovnik. I airbrush on the basic red. and then go in and do all the details. So they're all finished up. And then last but not least, I finished the last 2 miniatures for my Ariadne army, which is my Paracommando and my Uxia McNeil with boarding shotgun. She is so tiny. There's a big scale discrepancy here in these miniatures. We have a female paratrooper and a female officer, one of which is significantly bigger than the other, but that's first edition through till N3. So the Paracommando first edition, Uxia's an N3 miniature. And there we go. There is on my painting table for this week. Alright guys, so there's episode 9 of On the Machine Shop. That was ready to quit. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and a walk through sort of what's been on my painting table this week. As always, you can catch up with me on Facebook, my Facebook page, facebook.com/outofthebasement into the streets, or I'll hit you in the comments on the MiniWarGaming website or on YouTube. Until I see you guys next time for more Machine Shop, just keep your stick on the ice and happy wargaming.